Hello,
Snake.
and hail Satin.
Hail Saturn.
Hail Satin. Welcome to the Snob and the Slobs, episode 9. Tonight we're talking about No Holds Barred. I am unknown comics writer Chris Hurst, joined as always by my fellow slob comic book artist Max Hedstrom.
Hello.
And our snobby friend, director of stage and screen, Justin Driscoll.
Evening.
Little snafu on the trailer. We somehow ended up with a shortened clip. That's all right. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you get all you really need to know from the 2 seconds of footage.
Yeah, that's
Is
not
that all we got?
It's not far off. Yeah, that was the whole trailer, but that's okay.
I can share my screen.
No, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's fine.
Okay.
The moment has passed, but it's fine because we're talking about No Holds Barred, 1989 movie produced by World Wrestling Federation owner Vince McMahon and starring world champion at the time, Hulk Hogan. Now, little bit of admin and housekeeping that we're going to do in the beginning, and then I'm going to give you a quick recap of sort of how we got here with Hulk Hogan being in No Holds Barred, because I teased last week that he got fired for doing Rocky 3. So I'll tell you that story and then catch you up on how we got to No Holds Barred. So housekeeping wise, first of all, we have 2 more weeks after tonight until Thanksgiving. And on Thanksgiving, we're going to do a very special movie called Blood Rage. That is a Thanksgiving horror movie that is amazing. It's a beautiful, wonderful movie. After that episode, we are changing our format a little bit. The YouTube algorithm punishes live streams, so we are going to a pre-recorded show. But don't fear, we're still going to do some live streams now and then. We're going to do our chill streams probably at least, I think probably at least once a month we'll do something live. But our weekly shows are going to go to pre-recorded starting the beginning of January. So for December, the week after Thanksgiving, the 1st of December, we're going to do kind of a season recap for these first 11 episodes, talking about the 11 movies that we've watched, some of our favorite moments, some of the funniest things and jokes and stuff that we've made. And then for the month of December, we're going to fill the gap with some pre-recorded content, some quick hits. Justin's talking about doing a few videos while he's on holiday in Florida. And then when we come back, the beginning of January, the first Wednesday night in January, it'll be the new pre-recorded format. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So please stick with us, like the video, subscribe to the Max Hedstrom channel, comment down below, join us in the live chat, ring the notification bell, all that good YouTube stuff. It sounds silly every time somebody on a YouTube video says those things, but it really does help with the algorithm. Helps a lot. So
Van, Michael, Katie, Ralphie, Emma, hello. Thanks for turning up.
Yes, thank you to everybody who turns up every week. We have some really good regulars, a nice core audience. That's why we don't want to give up doing the live shows. We do enjoy hanging out with you guys and having a little chin wag, as the Brits say. Now, how did we get to 1989 and No Holds Barred?
Well, I know how I got there.
I know how we all got there. But anyway, 1980, around that time, Hulk Hogan was working for the World Wrestling Federation under previous owner Vince McMahon Sr., and he was offered the opportunity to do Rocky 3. Vince Sr. told him not to do it and basically gave him the ultimatum: you either tell them no or you're fired. So Hulk Hogan walked. He got fired by WWF to go do the movie. The reason, Max asked last week, why did he get fired? The reason is that back in the early 80s, they were still trying to protect the business, and Vince McMahon feared that doing Rocky would expose the business as being staged, and people would know. But here's the dirty little secret.
Seems crazy now, right?
I know it seems crazy, but people have known since the 30s. Newspapers stopped covering pro wrestling results in 1934.
So Chris,
it's not like everybody actually thought this was real until suddenly one day we're like, oh, I get it.
Hey, Chris, just real quick, just quick 30 seconds. Could you explain what you mean by trying to protect the business? I've had to endure your wrestling rants now for about
9 to 10
years, but I think it's an important concept, especially when you talk about stuff later on in the movie and everything.
Chris is the resident wrestling head.
Yeah,
it is an important concept, and it can also be applied to modern politics and culture, but that's for a chill stream. It's a concept called kayfabe, and kayfabe is the system of it's kind of an informal system that goes back to carnival days to protect the secrets of the business and to maintain the illusion of reality. And it's almost like an agreement between the audience and the promotion, the wrestling promotion, that we're all going to suspend our disbelief. The wrestlers are going to treat this as a real sporting event. The fans are going to, for 2 hours that we're all sitting in this arena, we're going to pretend that it's a real sporting event. We're going to boo when the bad guys win. We're going to cheer when the good guys win. Those kind of things.
Yeah,
Part of right. Everyone plays along. Part of kayfabe is that wrestlers go into the real world still in character, which we'll get into because there's kind of a comedic thing about the casting and the credits for this movie. But so when Hulk Hogan goes on the Tonight Show, he doesn't go on there as Terry Bollea the way that, say, Matt Damon goes on the Tonight Show as Matt Damon, right? This kayfabe is the equivalent of Matt Damon refusing to go get his Starbucks until someone calls him Jason Bourne, right? Hulk Hogan stays in character as Hulk Hogan all the time, anytime he's around fans, to maintain that illusion of reality. Okay. So that's what Vince was afraid of. Vince was afraid that if Hulk Hogan went on this movie, that it would destroy that illusion of reality. It would expose the business to the fans, and then it would hurt business. He was completely wrong. Hulk Hogan got bigger than ever after doing Rocky III. He ends up doing some work in Japan, ends up doing some work in Minnesota. And then in 1983, Vince McMahon Jr., the Vince McMahon we all know and hate, bought the company from his dad, had this grand idea of taking wrestling nationwide instead of the territorial system that it had been since the 40s. But he needed a superstar to help push that. He hired Hulk Hogan, immediately made him the world champion. Hogan was the world champion for 4 years. And then in 1988, they needed to get the belt off of him because he had to go film a movie called No Holds Barred. And so in order to do that, they did this crazy story that is one of the most famous wrestling stories ever. Also, the night that Hulk Hogan got caught on live national television speaking carny slang because he didn't know the camera was on. You can't find that footage anywhere now, by the way. But they put the championship on Andre the Giant, created this big, long story. Eventually, WrestleMania 4, they give the title to Randy Savage, who holds it for a year. And then at WrestleMania 5 the following year, Hulk Hogan takes it back, so that when the movie came out in 89, Hulk Hogan was the champion again, so that they could bring Zeus, who was the villain from the movie, into wrestling. And so you get this weird, like, wrestling and real life and the movie and everything kind of stacking on top of each other to create this craziness.
Hulk wasn't Hulk in the film.
He's not Hulk Hogan in the movie, which is what we'll get into.
Even though he looks exactly like him in every...
Looks exactly like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, he basically is.
Yeah, it's the exact same character as Hulk Hogan, just under a different name and a different color scheme. So anyway, that's kind of how we got to where we are. 1989, the movie comes out, or in 88 it gets made, 89 it comes out. Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan didn't like the first draft of the script, so they rewrote it over 72 hours in a hotel room. So the final version of the movie that we all had to enjoy, was written by 2 wrestling guys.
Oh, yes. And you could tell.
And with that,
you can definitely tell.
And with that, over to Justin.
Oh, God. So if you haven't noticed that tonight's going to be a little bit of a different type of a format. I'm usually the one with all the weird, obscure trivia when it comes to the movie and all the kind of behind the scenes stuff. That's all going to be Chris, and Chris is going to be doing the heavy lifting on that. So I'll be running through the plot, and he's going to be filling us in on all the wonderful details of the making of this shit show masterpiece. And as Chris said, tonight's film is 1989's No Holds Barred, and we go to the sun-soaked streets of North Florida. It's never said where this movie is set at, but it feels like Florida. I don't know about you. I look at that and I go,
I got LA.
I got Florida. Like,
but
tries to be LA, but it's not.
I got generic, sunny American city.
Oh yeah,
both of you by saying sunny, generic American city, and by saying it's trying to be LA. Both of you just described Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, I tried to rent this out loads of times when I was a little kid, and because I am an English boy, and everybody in England doesn't really fall in for that sort of shit. My dad was adamant that would never get rented out from the Green Garage video store because wrestling, WWF at the time, was in quotes bollocks. So I've had to wait almost 30 years to see this. Over 30 years.
And was it worth the wait, Max? Was it worth the
No,
wait?
it was absolutely worth the wait, just in a different way.
Oh,
I found this film fucking brilliant. I thought it was hilarious.
Like I said, this movie is so kiddie version of 80s. I feel like my TV had a detox of my first cocaine kit. It was like a Fisher Price mirror with a mound of coke on it. Like, oh my God, this was so 80s.
I was trying to compare myself to how I was when I was a little kid, and I think I enjoyed it more watching it.
Oh
as
yeah,
a 40-year-old man.
Oh,
I had the conversation with Von Smoot today that this movie tried to be like it comes across as like the most 80s thing ever, but then if you actually lived in the 80s, this isn't the actual 80s. This is like it's like a cartoon.
It's like a satire send
It's like a cartoon stereotype of what people think the 80s was. But it wasn't actually like that.
You know when people redo 8-bit computer games, and then you play it and you're like, oh man, this is actually quite good. And then you go back and play a real 8-bit computer game and you're like, oh, this is kind of shit in comparison, because the remake is like, it sort of takes all the things you thought were great and then wraps it up in something else.
Right.
And like this is so like, it's like a hyperbolic version of what you remember of the 80s. Yeah.
If it had been,
that's 40 years removed, though. That's the thing. Like,
sure.
When I watch this, I see someone who, and as Chris had mentioned, the script was rewritten. So I definitely see someone who originally wrote this script as someone who's seen RoboCop and has seen the Paul Verhoeven movies like Total Recall. So you have that really satirical look at, corporate greed and all that stuff, the corporate monster that's the villain. And then on top of that too, you have like the villains are straight out of Captain Planet. And the way that they're written, they are super broad, very just very blunt villains, but not in any funny way. And I think Chris brings up a good point when he mentions this. Is like, this is serious. They took this serious. We laugh at it, but if you're watching this as, like, I think I described this as, I feel like I've watched the 80s through the lens of a 15-year-old mulleted kid from North Florida.
Yeah.
Like this is what it's about, and you take it seriously.
Yeah. And so, at this point in his life, Hulk Hogan was a 35-year-old mulleted guy from South Florida. So
shit, man, he's younger than us in that film.
He's 35 when he filmed this movie. 36 when it came out. 35 when he filmed it.
He does look
steroids a hell of a drug.
Yeah, man.
So
and the funny thing is, he's 68 today, and doesn't look that much different than he did in 1988 or 88 when it was filmed. 89 when
he moves a lot different.
Well, yeah, because he's got 4 plastic hips now.
Yeah, the guy walks like he shot himself.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, he fucked his back up. Body slamming. Well, he claims body slamming Andre the Giant in 1987. Like fucked his back forever, but maybe it did. He's a 550-pound man. Couldn't have been easy. Even with assistance and Andre letting you pick him up, that still couldn't have been easy.
Yeah. So with that wonderful preamble and setup, we open up on Jesse Ventura introducing the world champion bout, and Jesus Christ. I mean, just right out of the gate.
Jesse Ventura dressed up like Cleopatra.
That's Jesse Ventura normal in 1989.
Straight out.
That's just how he was in 89.
Oh yeah, no, like in his and the one thing is that like the dialogue in this movie is just
brilliant,
incredible. The entire opening monologue is him talking to this announcer, and he's
that's you better put some respect on that name. That's Mean Gene Okerlund.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Come on in, you fuckers.
And so he's
that man is a legend.
So this supposed legend, I don't know. He's talking about how Ric Flair's dressed ridiculously. He's like, I'm always dressed to the occasion, and the occasion is
Jesse Ventura. Ric Flair's not in this movie.
Oh, sorry, Jesse Ventura. They all look the same. They're freaking 80s wrestlers. What do you want me to say?
Oh man, we're gonna throw down. I'm gonna bust out the Krav Maga.
So well, then you'd lose, wouldn't you?
So we open up on the Grand World Champion WWF fight with Rip and versus this freaking
for
Some
anybody
fat bloke with eyeliner.
for
Please.
anybody who is a wrestling fan, you may not realize who this is. This guy's name is Bill Eadie. Max, do you remember the tag team Demolition, Axe and Smash? They had the silver face paint and wore the like Road Warrior kind of like Mad Max kind of.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that was. Oh, yeah.
They were Road Warrior knockoffs. This is Axe.
I thought that was Ultimate Chaos or whatever.
No, they were called Demolition, but this is
Demolition.
Axe. This is Axe
Ah, I
from
didn't
Axe and
realise.
Smash. Yeah.
With the big spiky
Jesus.
shit coming out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them.
So Rip obviously wins to the joy of the crowd, and I just want to mention right now, so much baby oil, like just like a honey baked ham is running around the ring.
Yeah.
It's just so glistening. Like you do you.
That bit's the best bit.
Oh, yeah,
You mean this one right here?
Rip up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rip it.
It's a rip it. Rip 'em.
All right, so this brings us to an important point.
I
here.
reckon I could grow that hair, you know.
Please
Hulk Hogan's
Please
character
do.
in this movie is called Rip. Okay? But here's the problem I have. Max has alluded to it a little bit already. Hulk Hogan is already a fictional character. Hulk Hogan is not a real person. Okay? There is a real guy named Terry Bollea who spends time and made his career playing a character called Hulk Hogan. 2 years before this movie came out, there was a goddamn cartoon that had Hulk Hogan as the main character. It was called Rock and Wrestling. It was amazing. You guys should talk about it on Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay.
So Hulk Hogan is a fictional character. And in this movie, he plays a second fictional character called Rip. But it doesn't say Terry Bollea as Rip. It says Hulk Hogan as Rip. Right? So this is a real person playing a fictional character, playing a second fictional character. This is what I think we have a statement from Hulk Hogan about this.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What?
This is layers of stupidity. Why? Why did they not just have him
And what-
play
that-
Hulk Hogan in the goddamn movie?
That didn't even like register with me. I just know him as Hulk Hogan. Of course, he's not Hulk Hogan. I suppose it'd be like the Ultimate Warrior playing another warrior.
Well, at least he legally changed his name to Warrior before he died.
Did he?
Yes.
What a legend!
Yeah, this
I
is
kind of want to do that.
this is one of
Change
those
your name
things.
to
Like,
I'm going to change
change
my
your
name
name
to
to Warrior. You should. When we come back in our new season in January, it's gonna be Warrior Head Shroom.
Warrior Head Shroom and Krav
Max
Maga.
Warrior.
Max Warrior and Krav Maga.
Oh man! So
Tag team.
we
Rip it.
rip it.
Rip it.
No, we're called. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
So we cut from the crowd celebrating Rip's triumph, and we meet our villain, Brel, who's played by Kurt Fuller, who is the wormiest, just like in every 80s movie, he plays the wormy, like weaselly asshole, just like mini villain in every other movie. He's never the main villain. He's just like the mini villain. And it's just like, but it's great because he talks about how, it's, he's all angry because he's down in the ratings. He's the head of, World Television Network. And he just like limply throws his remote against the wall at a peak of rage. It just kind of, he throws it and you just see this like little poop of the remote just like break it apart and like fall into the ground. It's like last in the ratings again. And he's just upset about the, just downfall of his, newly acquired television empire. I mean, this is where we get introduced to his favorite insult. He wants that jock ass on his network the next morning. And that is the type of character we're going to be dealing with for the rest of this movie.
And this is not to make this whole episode about the history of 80s wrestling, but
it's going to be. I already knew that going in.
This is one of the points that illustrates how simplistic the plot and the characters are in this movie. When they started doing this and rewriting and making this movie. It was the first time that Vince had real competition at his national level since he had taken over from his dad, because Ted Turner, who owned TBS, TNT, eventually sold to Time Warner, and then AT&T, and like what we know now, Comics Geeks, DC Comics, right? The Ted Turner was all part of that. Cartoon Network, all those things. And so here comes Ted Turner, who owns his own TV network, is getting into the wrestling business, and is going to start taking stars away from Vince McMahon. So guess who the villain in this movie is? A guy who owns his own TV network, who's trying to get into the wrestling business and is trying to take stars away from the World Wrestling Federation.
And what's amazing about this is that it's not even subtle what they think of this guy. Like he is weak,
over the top,
cowardly. He is, and not in any interesting way. Like you could do an interesting villain that's like weak and sniveling and cowardly. I mean, Gladiator with Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus is a brilliant villain, but because he's so well written. This is just, once again, Captain Planet corporate villain live action in a wrestling movie. Like that's really what you need to know.
Yeah.
So the next scene is they cut to the morning board meeting where he is ranting and raving about how he refuses to grow old, waiting for Rip to ride off into the sunset. And the one creative shot we have in this movie is the twofer of the bust of his granddad facing him like Hamlet with a Vaseline, kind of soft glow over it. And he's talking to the bust about how he's going to take this network to the top. And as I started taking notes on this movie, I realized that it's the same note I'm going to take throughout this movie. The goddamn dialogue of this is just
terrible.
It's not terrible. It's insane. A crazy person wrote this dialogue.
Do you mean genius?
No,
because I think it's fucking brilliant.
It's insane.
It's
insane.
It's like a kid wrote it. It's fucking brilliant.
Well, yeah. Well, it makes sense. Like Chris was saying, they didn't like the script because I guess it was too competent and coherent. So they wanted to rewrite it so that they could,
But it's like I told Justin earlier today when we were chatting. It's not just that it was two wrestling guys. Like wrestling didn't even start getting aimed at the 18 to 49 demographic until like 1996, 97, when Stone Cold Steve Austin and D-Generation X and that kind of stuff came along. In 1988, 89, it's still aimed at like 12 to 16-year-olds. So it's not only is it written by two wrestling guys, it's written by two wrestling guys who are used to appealing to preteens.
Oh, and it's very, like, once again, it's one of those things that if I was of that age at this time period, and I went to go see it, and I was in this fan base, like I could see loving this movie.
Dude, I ate this movie up when it came out.
I mean, I didn't want to date you there, Chris, but you do you.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you how old I was, but I was in that 12 to 16 range. And I might have been on the higher end of it.
Like the great thing about this, and remember, this is all delivered straight face. He turns to the one token female in the boardroom. He goes, "Miss Samuels, you survived my purge. Show me that I didn't misplace my faith in you." And she all stands up like all timid, like it's like, well, I've hired a writer to rewrite a prop comedy. It's like, sit down. She sits down. It's like, Miss Samuels, go take a leak. It's like, and she like runs out. I'm like, what the ever loving fuck?
I love how they tried so hard, and they thought that they were creating like a Gordon Gekko.
Yeah.
Oh,
like, this is like corporate raider. Greed is good.
Oh
like,
yeah,
evil corporate master kind of.
Yeah.
He's like way over exaggerated, isn't he? He loses his shit like.
I love Kurt Fuller. I think the guy as like a comedic character actor is fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
He's great in this. He's perfect. It's just the writing is so on the nose and just shit.
I mean, this would actually bring up a good point, Chris. I think what really saves this for me was he's like Alan Rickman. And
Ralph was in the 21 to 25 year range.
I think Kurt Fuller in this movie is much.
Damn.
So you were not in the 12 to 16-year-old range, is what you're saying. I think Kurt Fuller in this movie is much like Alan Rickman in the early 90s Robin Hood with Kevin Costner, where everybody else is treating this seriously. And he is just like, this is fucking ridiculous. So he's having a great time with it, which just makes it that much better.
These were the things that Kurt Fuller always did. I mean, he was
always. That's what I
always.
mean, though. Like,
Yeah.
you have Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan all taking this seriously.
Yeah.
He's like, this is fucking whatever. Hey, you're gonna pay me? I'm gonna have fun.
This is a dumb comedy. Like, we're gonna play this as a dumb comedy.
And then so he
they thought it was an action movie. They were clearly wrong.
Yeah, right. So he sits there and shoots out all the other ideas and say, we need to get Rip onto our contract. And this is another great set of lines. And he's saying that, well, Rip's already under contract. Well, we should need to buy him out. He's just like, but Rip's word is his bond. They get him to break his bond. Everybody has a price. I'm just like,
everybody. The great thing is, everybody has his price is lifted straight from.
That's it.
WWF. That's the $1 Million Man. They took that line directly from the $1 Million Man. This shows how listen, you got to understand. This has been a great Schadenfreude week for me because people in the wrestling business think Vince McMahon is a genius. They think he made the modern wrestling business, and to some extent he did. But they think he's some creative genius. But this is the shit he comes up with. He can't even. He's stealing from himself.
I mean, when you recognize to a very specific audience, doesn't he, Chris?
Yeah, but unfortunately for him, that audience doesn't pay attention to him anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a wrestling live stream to talk about the failures of WWE in the 21st century.
Oh, don't.
I said God. It's a wrestling live stream.
I'm starting to have fucking flashbacks now.
It's a wrestling live stream. It's not for this one.
Yeah. So next scene, Rip is brought in to meet with Brell and have him make his offer. And he comes in to sit down, and this chair was crafted for men of great stature.
So Louis the 18th,
Louis the 14th would have been so pleased. You're or whatever.
Hulk Hogan's he sits down and he's like, over-tanned ass sitting.
It was made for Louis the 14th. What was the average size of a full-grown man in Europe in the?
I think it was about 14 centimeters.
In the 17th century, right? I'm pretty sure it was not. I'm pretty sure it was not 6'7", 300.
Yeah. We all had massive biceps. And they carried three muskets in each hand. How do you think
they decided the kings in France during the imperial period? They just had freaking, rage in the cage fights.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan is probably the size of 2 average Louis the 14ths.
Probably.
Stacked on top of each other.
I like it when he sits down.
He could probably bend Louis the 14th over his top lip to make his handlebar moustache.
or a new mullet.
Yeah.
So he comes and sits down, and Brell's like, all right, I want you to come work for me. And Rip's like, I'm not interested. And he's like, oh, no, you didn't listen to my proposal. I don't think you're thinking, okay, cool. He's going to come up with some like crazy fucking proposal with the boobs.
Look at him grabbing his tits.
And he comes up like this too, as he's trying to walk away. He's like, my proposal is I want you on my network and I'm willing to pay whatever. Like that. So you're talking about basic negotiation. That's your goal.
That's your big secret weapon is you're just going to pay him more than anyone else.
That picture, man. Look at his face. Look how happy he looks that he's got Hulk Hogan's arms in his hand.
That's peak Hulk Hogan. I don't care what side of the base you swing for. You're going for that grab if you can get it.
For sure.
So he gets up.
I can honestly say I met Hulk Hogan, 1997.
Yeah. Did he have nice tits?
I did not grab his tits.
I wouldn't either.
I was not. That is probably the largest man I have ever stood next to.
Yeah,
he's a big dude. I don't know if
get off my tits, brother.
I don't know if he's legitimately 6'7", but he's pretty fucking big.
Yeah. So he tries to walk away, and he tells him, and Burrell makes the big mistake of laying hands on him, grabbing up his boobs and stuff like that, calling him a jock ass. And so he goes to sit down, and he's like, Look at that.
Yeah, man, they look heavy. They look dense.
Right? Oh, yeah. It's like you go in, it's like.
Von Smoot, that's exactly the problem with WWE in the 21st century.
All right, guys. Well, that's been a great run. I hope you guys enjoy Stopping the Slob. This is now turned into a wrestling live stream. I hope you all have a great evening. I'm out.
Come on, brother.
So,
Rip it.
rip it. So, I will say this. I will say this. I love the music in this movie because I think I've started to have an affinity for cheap 80s scores.
That's
like
another plus for the film, man.
Like that awesome I bought a Casio at a Radio Shack and I've pushed all the demo buttons. That's that is the soundtrack for this movie, except for the final song, because I love it. Any 80s movie that has a theme song, I'm automatically on board for. So he sits down, picks up the check, and they're all like, yeah, he's going to sign it because obviously they can't read a room. And he gets up and Rip grabs him by the collar and says, I will not be here when this check clears, and then shoves the check down his throat. And then
vain attempt at toilet humor.
Yeah, I'm assuming he meant when he clears, he's going to shit it out.
Yeah, but he doesn't eat the check.
Yeah, he doesn't swallow it. Yeah.
He doesn't swallow it. He just shoves it in his mouth. It's hanging out of his mouth. And I won't be here when this check clears, brother. And then he leaves.
Sorry.
All the fight dialogue in this movie is just terrible 80-yard grunts and huffing, and
needs to be the new
terrible.
logo.
Mate, there's so much screaming in this film. At least 30% of this film is just that. It's just screaming.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm hyperventilating. I got the papers. I will say this. For a movie that's written by wrestlers and for a wrestling audience, it really treats wrestlers with a lot of disdain and hatred. Like when Rip gets into the ring, he's nothing but an animal. All the heels in this movie are complete just mouth.
That's because they're kayfabing the movie.
I get that they're kayfabing the movie, but still, there's nothing like. It shows absolutely no respect for wrestling. I get it's a late 80s movie, but I found that kind of funny.
No, I think that's where you're wrong. I think it is showing respect for wrestling because they're maintaining the illusion of reality within the movie. So when Bill Eadie, who is the heel in that opening match, they treat him with disdain because he's a heel. And if you were watching a WWF show, they would be treating the heel with disdain on there too, because the whole thing is the psychology of getting the fans to hate the bad guy. It's the melodrama of it.
I guess I'm just showing my snobby side then.
They're just sticking to the kayfabe within the movie.
Yeah,
because you are the resident snob.
I am the resident snob. I'm on brand.
Which to a non-wrestling, the funny thing is, to a smart wrestling fan who knows that it's fake and is in on the joke and gets the kayfabe of it all, it looks ridiculous because I know this is fake. So why are you playing this so straight-laced? Why are you kayfabing me? But to someone like you, who's not up to speed on all of the ins and outs of how the business works, it looks silly because you're like, this is stupid. It's what you're treating, because it comes across to you that they're treating wrestling with disdain. So either way, it doesn't work.
It is an odd concept when you think about it like that. It's like the opposite of breaking the fourth wall, isn't it? It's like going in deeper. Instead of coming out.
You become as part of kayfabe. When you're in the audience, you become part of the show. Your suspension of disbelief and your acceptance of all of the fake reality of it all becomes part of the show.
Yeah, but then as a viewer of the film, you've then got to accept that, because the film displays wrestling as non-kayfabe, as a real thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've got to suspend your disbelief twice.
Yes.
Once for the film, and then once for
again for the wrestling.
So you're going into the film and into the film again. It's almost
Nolan made a movie about this.
Yeah. It's like Inception on steroids.
yeah.
Literally Inception on steroids.
Literally on steroids.
Literally on steroids. Yeah. So he gets back in the limo and drives away, and then this is where they try to kidnap him. This is something I love in 80s movies like this. They go through so much effort to kidnap this guy. Like, they have a specially armored limo with the dividing walls and all this stuff. Like, the metal walls come up, and they hire all these henchmen to kidnap this guy. It's like, is he really worth all this kind of back end effort? I mean,
and when he kicks the door of the car
and you see the dent come out,
and the car
and the
starts
guy's
like,
swerving because he's thrown his
Yeah,
leg.
he's smashing the back of the limousine up so thoroughly
Yeah.
that it's throwing off
I
the
love it.
wheels in the car, and he
and
can't
then he
steer
just
it.
he just blows out of the top like a volcano.
I
like
love
a
Yeah,
jack,
yeah.
like
As
a
you're
jack
still
in the
driving,
box.
I love how
Yeah,
you
he
just
does.
start
comes out
smashing-
like,
So as they're still driving, I love how you just start smashing the TV for absolutely no reason. He starts breaking everything in there, and yeah, they pull into a garage, and then he magically bursts out of the roof of the limo,
Yeah,
and then fights the guys that all try to kidnap him, and then
and it's such.
I fucking love this
oh,
scene.
God.
It's
This
such.
is
It's.
so
I
good.
loved it. This was my favorite scene. It's such wrestling fighting.
oh
Like,
yeah,
all of the
absolutely.
things he does are just like one hit. The guy falls,
Yeah.
like the guy takes a back
Yeah.
bump, and then it's all like outside the ring on the floor wrestling. It's
There's
not.
a really good shot where
It's not an actual fight.
he either punches
No, not at
someone
all.
or kicks them, and you see it from his point of view, and the guy goes fucking flying into some barrels, like
Yeah,
he doesn't go up, he doesn't go down, he just goes straight across like that. It's
Yeah.
amazing. The force that he'd have to hit a man with for that.
yeah.
It's like
brilliant.
a cartoon where he's like,
Yeah, he's like that.
yeah.
So he pulls the driver out of the limo. And he asks, okay, Chris, I'm going to tee you up for this. He asks him the question. And Chris, what's the question?
What's that smell?
Max, what's the response?
Dookie.
Now here's my theory. Everybody in the wrestling business has a Vince McMahon impersonation. One of two things happened. That voice that Hulk Hogan does, that what's that smell? That is a Vince McMahon impersonation. So either Vince McMahon coached him up right before that, and Hulk Hogan is such a bad actor that he just copied exactly what Vince
Hulk Hogan's a
do,
shy actor. He's awful, but that's why he's great as well.
or Hogan was taking the piss out of Vince. Because that is straight up Vince McMahon impersonation.
You think?
Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with.
I've heard just about everybody in the wrestling business in what are called shoot interviews when they're out of character and they're just being themselves. I've heard just about every one of them do a Vince McMahon impersonation. Every one of them sounds like Hulk Hogan did when he said, "What's that smell?" Every single one of them.
Honestly, it's easy to say, "Oh, it's probably the form. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing," but Hulk Hogan was a very charismatic performer.
Absolutely.
Natural performer.
Yeah,
and practical jokes and taking the piss is such a part of the wrestling business that it would not surprise me at all if he did that as a rib just to fuck with Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I can see that.
And they were good at this point in their lives. This was before the steroid trial and when Ted Turner actually did sign Hulk Hogan away from WWF. At this point, they were actually good friends and business partners, and they got along really well. So.
Yeah. So at this point, we cut to, because if there's one thing that this movie's great at, it's just dropping plot lines whenever it's convenient. So this whole thing goes down, and then we just cut to a boardroom meeting where we have a brand meeting with, his kind of faceless, or I don't know, supposed to be the WWF, and we meet the love interest in the movie.
Which, hang on a second, it's the World Wrestling Federation in the movie. Who's the World Wrestling Federation champion in the movie?
It's Rip.
It's Rip. Who was the World Wrestling Federation champion in real life?
Hulk Hogan.
At this point.
Was it Randy Savage?
It was Hulk Hogan. At the time that the movie came out, it was Hulk Hogan.
Ah, okay.
Which just adds further to why the fuck was he just not Hulk Hogan in the goddamn movie?
Yeah, why wasn't he Hulk Hogan?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Jesse Ventura plays himself. Gene Okerlund plays himself.
I think
it's called the World Wrestling Federation. They use the same belt. He's the same goddamn character, just a different name. I don't know why they didn't just have him as Hulk Hogan.
Copyright infringement issues.
No, because I think by this point they already done the settlement with Marvel, because they did have to do an agreement with Marvel to use the name Hulk.
I mean, right up until I watched this the other day, I thought he was Hulk Hogan throughout
No,
because Zeus came into WWF.
Zeus came into WWF,
and I remember
we'll
my mates
we'll
at
get into
school,
that.
at primary school, telling me about that. And he was like, "You've got to watch the film because Zeus is in WWF now." And I just always assumed that it was all set in the same world, right?
Nope.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's
Really
bizarre. It's so
yeah.
inconsistent on when they kayfabed it and when they did reality. It's nuts. It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I mean, surprisingly, this movie.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
What? Telling you, man.
Maybe
yes,
Emma.
because-
Maybe he was
yes,
trying to
because
be an actual actor by changing his name, but I mean that's the only thing he did.
Oh,
It's like me just changing my name to just.
But that wasn't the
job
point of
in
this.
the next episode.
That was not the point of this movie. The point of this movie was to promote the WWF.
Yeah. So
I can only imagine that you know that 48 hours or whatever that they
And we'll get in. They had there was this like weird experimental thing that Vince wanted to do that we'll get into when we start talking about Zeus.
So we meet the love interest of this movie, Samantha Ann Moore. Ann Moore.
Do you remember what else she's been in?
Joan Severance, lots of things.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I can remember her being in was See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Yeah, she's probably, other than, it's a toss-up. As far as notoriety, she's the most famous actor other than Hulk Hogan, obviously, but like actual Hollywood actor. She's the most famous in the movie, I think.
But I think it was Kurt Fuller ended up doing more than she did. But it was
yes, as far as who did the most stuff would be Kurt Fuller, but I think as far as notoriety and who was better known, it would be Joan Severance.
So
at least at the time.
I do really love this. So she's given a presentation about Rip's branding. So before I get to this next comment, Chris, as our resident wrestling expert, could you please explain the concept of the baby face and why it's relevant to this movie?
Wrestling is a melodrama, so it's separated into good guys and bad guys, and within wrestling terminology and parlance, the good guys are called baby faces and the bad guys are called heels. Sometimes baby face is shortened to just face, sometimes even just baby, but yeah, baby faces and heels is heroes and villains. It's all interchangeable terms, but within wrestling they say baby face or heel.
And the one thing I think is really important to this, because it plays so much to how this film is made. What was Hulk Hogan's persona as a babyface at this point?
He was the real American. He came out to that song, "I am a real American," and he had the 3 demandments of say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and something else. Drink water. I don't know what the third one was.
Wipe your ass.
Yeah, say your prayers, clean your room. I don't know. I don't remember. I never listened to him.
Sounds like Jordan Peterson.
That's why I threw that. That's why I threw that in there. Yeah, he was the white meat baby face. You couldn't get more of a good guy than Hulk Hogan. He was there for all the kids, and he was there to stand up for America against those damn commies. And his first world title win was against the Iron Sheik, who was actually, no kidding, a bodyguard for the Shah of Iran before the 79 revolution. So that was his character.
Oh, he's the true red-blooded American. In fact, he just seriously eyes fucks the shit out of Sam while she's walking around the table.
But it's done in such a clean-cut way.
Oh yeah,
we look at it now and go, okay, that looks kind of creepy and maybe even a little predatory. But in 1989, that was very subtle.
Yeah. Was it? I mean,
yeah, that was pretty clean cut.
To be fair, it was very clean cut. Like,
very clean cut for 89.
Yeah, I would definitely say I would agree with that. But anyway, so why I bring this up is that as you see throughout this movie, you're going to see him kind of being positioned as this just gooder than good, whiter than white, wrestling Jesus type of characters.
It's Rip, Emma, Rip.
As in
almost nailed the landing on that.
Joke was almost there.
Almost nailed it. Almost nailed it.
There. But instead, we're going to put you on worldwide YouTube and take the piss out of you.
So,
love you, Emma.
Thanks for this. I get to deal with this after we turn the show off. No, my wife's a great sport. She puts up with me watching all these terrible movies. Like, she's a trooper. So, but what's great about this is that she's like, oh, all these, once again, nothing really insightful. She's like, we should take advantage of merchandising. We should increase his TV because he's really popular on TV. We should line them up with his world championship matches. And she turns to him and asks him, Rip, what do you think about all this? Trying to put him on the spot. And his response to her is, well, Rip would like me to tell you that Rip's favorite activity outside of work is his charity work. And to make sure to really emphasize that.
Which makes you wonder if he's talking about himself in the third person. What's Rip's real name?
Ripped.
So
I'm going with Rip.
Yeah, that is
I'm
a
going
good
with
point. Is Rip his wrestling name, or is it
Rip is his wrestling name within the context of the movie. So what's Rip's real name? Is there a fourth character that we don't know
Oh
about?
dear, no, we're not going down this rabbit hole. I am not doing this. So we
I am a dude playing 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 a dude. Just for infinite. Just for infinity.
So he goes. She asked him, "Oh, would you like me to talk to me about it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll tell you about it." She's like, "Fine. Tonight, 8:00, I'll pick you up. Dinner, dressing nice. We're doing this." So they eat at a fancy French restaurant. So we cut to the French restaurant for date night, and this guy, the waiter, I willing to bet money he had the same dialect coach, the same accent coach that Glenn Danzig had for Veronica.
For Veronica. Maybe he was the accent coach.
Maybe he was
Veronica.
the accent coach.
Yeah.
I'm going with it because it's just. And so he's like,
"Oh, you cannot find cheese. You cannot find cheeseburger.
And so he reads off the menu. And
Shit, guys."
He reads off the specials menu to her, and it's literally like the most childish version of what a kid thinks French cuisine is. It's like, we have the snails and the quiche and the champagne.
That is the wafer thin mint.
Yeah, it's a wafer thin.
And
What
so
did he say about the quiche? That it's a meat pie?
It's a cheese. It's
cheese
a
pie.
Pie.
It's a
And
cheese pie to you.
So he starts talking shit to Rip, or he's like, if you are looking for the hamburger or the foot-long hot dog, you will not find it on our menu. So she's like trying to talk to him, like, oh, I don't think you like anything here. Why don't you try this? At that point, all the kitchen staff comes out and talks to the maître d'. He's like, "Oh, Emile, why didn't you tell us that our friend Monsieur Rip is here?" So very clearly, he knows all the, he's good friends with the working staff, but also, of course, he frequents French restaurants. Because fuck you stuck up bitch. You know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
I like how they balance that. Where, of course, he's sophisticated enough that he eats at a French restaurant, but he's with the working class guys. He's not friends with the maître d's. He's friends with the chefs and the dishwashers.
Yeah,
he might walk around in a leotard and leg warmers, but he is sophisticated.
And he's an everyman. He's a sophisticated everyman.
Yeah,
this is why
he looks like an
judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, everyman is 6'7", 320 pounds.
Fucking built like a brick shit house. So
everyman.
We cut to the film decided it's now time to catch up with our villains, and we meet with Brill and his underlings, and they go to the No Count Bar, which is just every stereotype rolled into a building that you could possibly think of. It's everyone is dirty and spitting and drinking
and hillbillies.
And what's that?
They're all hillbillies.
Oh, they're all hillbillies. They're all
the bar.
The bar. So they walk in and Bro's like, oh, and this isn't even taken as a joke. Like, this is not a joke. We see that, we laugh. That is not played as a joke.
Wrestling fans don't think that's a joke.
I don't know what to tell you. Like,
that's wrestling legend Stan Hansen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Stan Hansen. He's one of the wrestlers that had a part in this movie. He was good friends with Hulk Hogan. They had some classic matches against each other in Japan. Hulk Hogan gets a bad rap sometimes as a guy who can't actually wrestle because he's so big and he just lumbers around and does a couple of moves. But if you watch some of his matches from Japan, he actually has some skill, and he has some matches against Stan Hansen that are epic.
Cool.
I hate Hulk Hogan. I'm just trying to give him some credit where it's due.
You hate Rip?
Oh yeah, Hulk Hogan's a piece of human garbage. But we can talk about that another. Oh, he's a horrible person.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ruined it for
That's the
me,
whole thing. So, like, and I love that there's a little person in a cage just throwing peanut shells at these guys.
Yeah, for no reason. And
For no
like
reason.
it's never a plot point again.
No, it just never happened. So Brell's like, I heard that this is a great place. We're gonna find the next big thing. So he wants to find something that's going to compete with Rip in the WWF. And I do it for the fans, Von Spoot. I do it for the fans. I sacrifice.
He's trying to put himself over as the babyface here, but
I am the babyface. My gorgeously, lusciously soft beard and all that. So
yeah, because that's what babies are.
On.
Yes.
So they're watching. So in the middle of this bar is a big fight ring where it's pretty much just no holds barred. Hey, Dave. No holds barred. You know, just fight to the finish type match. And Brell's like, oh yeah, this is it. And it's two underlings, once again, very broad, effeminate stereotypes of the spineless, corporate stooges. They're like, oh, I can't handle this. This is so dirty. And just
they've all got tiny dicks as well.
Yeah, that's coming up. Mm-hmm. So he decides that they're gonna do this. They need to go to the bathroom. They go to find the bathroom, which is like the largest bathroom in a dive bar I've ever seen.
It's twice as big as the actual bar.
It's twice as big as the actual bar. So they walk in, and I love that they have this big skull mural above the sinks that says, "Wash your hands. It's the law." It's nice to know that this dive bar really cares about hygiene. You know what these two sidekicks they reminded me of was Pain and Panic from the Disney movie Hercules, except not funny.
Except not funny.
Except not funny.
The funny thing is they were supposed to be comic relief in this movie.
Oh God, this whole movie's comic relief. So they're going to the bathroom and talking about how the bar's full of or freaking low class idiots and all this, and that this is never going to work. Except the big blonde guy from earlier comes out and decides to harass them because they're talking shit. And he walks up to them behind while they're still peeing and goes, "Look at what we have here. Tiny Wang. And even tinier Wang. Not worth the effort." You're like, what?
That's pretty good Stan Hansen.
What? And he just walks away.
I'm cutting that off this episode of you doing that.
Yeah.
It's gonna go in every. It's gonna go
out of every episode. So
every promo.
Please continue.
Yes. So they leave. They go back, and at this point, he's like, "Great, we're gonna do this thing." And so they cut to the press conference for when Brell announces this. And so wrestling is all about it's all about the fights, right? It's all about the show. It's all about these really catchy names for the show. WrestleMania, Brawl for the all the hell of it, like all these different things. Like I'm not even a wrestling fan, and there are memorable creative names for the fights. And so the big thing, the big tournament that's supposed to bring Rip out and lead to this big confrontation is the Battle of the Tough Guys.
The Battle of the Tough Guys.
Not to be mistaken for Brawl for All.
The Battle of the Tough Guys.
That's
it's like something your nan came up with, isn't it? Look at him.
Oh, Jesus. So oh God, Battle of the Tough Guys. So they montage to the Tough Guys. You get to win. So here's an interesting point, and I'm going to lead this in for you, Chris, to talk more about some wrestling lore here. How much money do you get for winning Battle of the Tough Guys?
$100,000.
How much was the purse money for Brawl for the All?
So
whatever?
Brawl for All was an event that Vince did in WWF in 1996, I think, and it was $100,000 for the winner. The problem with Brawl for All was that they decided to do it as what's called a shoot, which in wrestling terminology means that it was going to be real. And it was a tough man contest, boxing. You get these wrestlers in the ring and let them actually hit each other for real. And they had a plan for who was going to win. Unfortunately, what they didn't count for is one of the guys was a junior gold gloves champion when he was a kid, and he knocked the living fuck out of everybody.
Right.
And
I'd love to see that.
So when he won, he knocked the dude that they had wanted to win, a guy named Steve Williams, who was one of my favorite wrestlers when I was a kid. He basically ended Steve Williams's career, fucked the dude up.
Really?
Yeah, and Steve Williams was one of these guys that if you remember the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, Legion of Doom, that's it, yeah.
Those guys in a real life backstage fight, they backed down from Steve Williams because he was that kind of tough guy in the back.
Sure.
And Bart Gunn in the Brawl for All beat the piss out of him. And Bart Gunn ended up winning the whole tournament.
What a fucking mistake, man.
And they had no clue what to do with it. And they were like, oh, that's right. This is why we script everything so that we can control the outcome.
Shit.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
So we're introducing some of the choice names for the fighters in this. Brock Cinders, Bulldog McPherson, and Klondike Kramer.
Oh,
that's
Jesus.
That's the level that we're dealing with here, folks. That's what we're dealing with here. So, they all fight.
Remember, Vince McMahon is a creative genius.
He is a creative genius. And so, what's notable about this is where we meet Zeus. Zeus walks in, and he walks like Frankenstein. He does that whole stands up with his arms out because supposedly his lats are too big for him to actually bring his arms all the way down and walk normally. And he just walks like Frankenstein. And just
to be fair, they probably were too big for him to put down at this point. I saw a video this week in show prep of Tiny Lister, the guy who plays Zeus, talking about when he got the job, he got the role to play Zeus. He said, in his words, they put me on the stuff. And he went from 285 at the audition to 3 months later when they started filming, he was 320, 325.
Fucking hell.
So he got jacked quick.
He is massive, isn't it?
So when he's doing that, he probably can't put his arms down.
Well, but the thing is, though, he's doing the whole mindless machine walking type thing.
And then he picks up a barmaid by the face.
Just picks her up.
Just fucking throws it. I was pissing myself at that.
I got this picture. This is from when he was on WWF later in '89. I put this picture on there because Tiny Lister was born with retinal damage in one eye, and that's why he's got his right eye is kind of a lazy eye like that. He's actually legally blind in that eye.
Shit.
When they were doing the promo in this shot, they were doing the promo for the match. His tag team partner was Macho Man Randy Savage, and Randy Savage said, "I finally found someone who can look over my right shoulder and my left shoulder at the same time."
What a bastard.
Jesus. Oh dear Lord. So so he wins the fight hands down. He's declared the tough guy, winner of the Battle of the Tough Guys. And we cut to the next boardroom scene where they're all happy because they're number one in the time slot. Chris, maybe you could speak to this a bit. So one of the things that they're talking about here is as Brell is celebrating that they're number one in the time slot, one of the other wormy, sniveling corporate stooges brings up the fact that there's now a nationwide coalition to ban wrestling, and the violence gave their kids nightmares and all this. Was that a thing when
not
wrestling was
really? I mean, I'm sure there were some parents that, I mean, my parents weren't real keen on wrestling, but I don't remember, at least in my lifetime, not in the 80s, I don't remember any kind of attempts to ban wrestling.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough. I was just curious. That seemed like a
yeah,
really
not
pointed.
that I remember.
Okay, then I can just chalk this up to another plot point that this film just drops when it's
Yeah,
convenient.
yeah.
So we cut back to the second week of the Battle for the Tough Guys, because evidently this is now a weekly thing, where he's fighting Lugwrench Perkins. So once again, we're just really just getting into those stage names. Nothing much happens there. He fights, he wins. What's interesting here is you're starting to see the public turn against Zeus as a character. Like the people that are watching this fight, which is happening in an active steel mill. They're all like disgusted with how he's behaving. They don't like what he's doing and all this, and it's just great.
Yeah, I was confused by this bit. Why was one of them allowed to have an iron bar?
Because what do you want me to say? Nothing in this movie makes any sense. There's no purpose that's happening to anything.
Kayfabe. Kayfabe. I don't know.
It makes sense within the own movie's internal logic, but this dude's allowed to have a fucking weapon. I was like, what?
They're having a match in a fucking steel mill. That doesn't make sense.
Why not bring a samurai sword then?
To be honest with you, it's like maybe it's to show how tough Zeus is that he can fight somebody that has a weapon. I don't know. Like that's just me putting my own bullshit on it. I can't fucking tell you.
Yeah,
I can't even fucking tell you.
You're the snob.
So we cut back to Brel watching with his underlings, and this is great. The Unger, one of them, is carrying a video camera, which I'm pretty sure my parents had that video camera, and I shot some of my school projects on film on that video camera. There's like, oh hey Unger, hope you enjoy your birthday present. He's like, thanks. Video's my life. It's like.
Okay,
but Bro's like, that
congrats,
gives me a
man.
great idea. Bro gives me that. This is this gives me a great.
That's
idea.
exactly how kayfabe works, Von Smoot.
Yeah.
No, that is
clearly
exactly how it works.
You just that's the word that you say
exactly
when you want to explain things.
Yes.
Kayfabe seems to be a bit like dark matter.
Or cosmic rays in Marvel.
Yeah. You just say
I don't know what it is, but I know what
it exists.
Yeah. It's a thing that exists that you don't know.
So at this point, Bro comes up with this brilliant idea, which I think actually gets into a really, really dark area later on in this movie, especially in today's kind of socio-cultural climate. We'll get there. But he's like, Zeus can be led. Cut back, and Zeus is just wailing on the dude, and clearly people are starting to turn on him and stuff like that. So we have that. Cut back to the movie decides it's now time to check back in on Rip. Him and Sam are going on a business trip for some reason. And Rip introduces Randy to Sam.
Have you brought up who Randy is yet?
His brother?
Yeah, I don't think you've mentioned that. Randy is his brother who also accompanies him to the ring.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Randy.
Randy. Yes. God forbid. This is such a well-crafted, plotted movie that I can't forget characters. This is integral to the fabric of the story. So Randy's the brother. He is in the first scene, so he is established. He doesn't show up halfway through the movie.
He does disappear halfway through the movie and then reappear 3/4 of the way through the movie.
He shakes hands with Sam, and his comment to Sam is, "You have a really nice grip." What type of psychopath says something like that to a person, to a woman he just met?
Wrestlers.
You have a really nice grip.
Wrestlers. This
so
is gonna sound crazy to somebody on the outside who's not in. There is a kayfabe handshake. Wrestlers actually do think about handshakes. When wrestlers shake hands with people on the outside, their hand is a dead fish. They do like this limp dead fish handshake. It's just a thing that they do because they're fucking nuts and they're carnies. They're all fucking carnies.
It's probably like to reinforce the power fantasy or something like that.
I have no idea why.
That's something that I can think of.
But they do, wrestlers will do like this dead fish handshake. So the fact that they put in a line in the movie about a firm handshake, perfect sense.
Okay, cool.
Perfect sense coming from wrestlers.
I'm glad this film really spoke to you, Chris.
And it didn't speak to me. It's dumb as shit, but I can understand where the stupidity comes from.
So they go to this restaurant that, and this is where we get the whole thing of the woman, the owner of the restaurant tells Sam, "Oh, he's a great one. You better lock him down now," and all this. It's just
Give
like
the Shoonie B treatment.
yeah, absolutely. But while they're having lunch, two robbers decide to break in or rob the place. And as they're trying to steal the money, Rip tells Sam, "Okay, when I make a move, duck." So he makes a move, she ducks, and he defeats the robbers.
With pies.
I'm pretty sure he does more property damage than what was actually in the register. Like
Quite possibly, yeah.
he's just
I must have slept through this part.
He just throws loads of pies and cakes at them. Chairs.
He's like the Avengers going through New York City at the end of the Avenger. Like he just destroys this restaurant, and she's all like, "Oh, that's my man! That's my man! Oh my God, you haven't lost your touch." It's like
Superman and Zod at the end of Man of Steel.
Superman and Zod.
Yeah, but that's a great movie.
Oh, and of course, like I said, of course, Sadie loves him. And what's great about this is that he saves everybody, and then of course everybody has to applaud Rip because he's just
of course because he's the baby face.
Whatever. So they go to the hotel, and wouldn't you know, they only booked one room with one big bed. And
hey,
he said, "So Hulk Hogan."
Look at the fucking size of him.
I'm telling you, dude, the guy's massive.
Hulk Hogan, being the gentleman that he is, puts up a divider, which, to me, very clearly, Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan were inspired by the classic 1939 road comedy Frank Capra.
Doubt it.
You Can't Take It With You, starring Clark Gable and Arthur Jean.
I told you this last night in our pre-discussion, and I'll repeat it now. If this was influenced by any Frank Capra movie, it was in the original draft of the script.
To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised.
And Vince and Hulk just didn't know any better, so they left it in.
Because that is such a distinct visual that's very much linked to that movie.
But it's also one of those visuals that probably because of the Frank Capra movie, but it's become fairly ubiquitous, and it's a common. I could see them getting that as like a secondary influence from, like, they saw it in another movie that was influenced by Frank Capra.
In the Frank Capra movie, does that scene lead into a wanking joke?
Ironically, yes.
Like it does here.
It was the first, and actually, you're right. It's a good point. Frank Capra actually did write the first masturbation joke that was put on screen and got it past the censors in 1939. It was very much Clark.
The
Gable.
idea of Hulk Hogan knocking one out next to you in bed is fucking horrifying.
That's fucking
terrifying. That is terrifying. But I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It's only mildly less terrifying where you see him do loads of push-ups with his little brown ass.
Oh, but I do love it when she peeks around and you see just like that glistening moonshot of him doing fucking push-ups.
Mate, I was like, honestly, because it took me about so I was half expecting to see what I didn't want to see.
Oh, I
didn't still go.
This is like, so in 80s movies.
You want to join in, brother?
Rip it. Oh, that's dark. That's dark. So, like, and in 80s movies like this, especially low budget action movies, they always find any excuse to throw in boobs or anything. The farthest this movie goes is that she's shown in a bra. And not even like panties, but like a slip as she crawls in the bed.
Again, this was WWF going for their target audience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I just love that push-up shot where he's just like cranking out push-ups. But it's just like that.
Dude, you love that shot.
He looks over his shoulders back at her, like, "Don't wait up for me." So he gets, and here's my two favorite lines in this movie. He gets into bed. He's so massive, he breaks the bed, and she rolls over on top of him, and she's all like, "Stop it!" Ah!
Yeah,
he is. And so he goes,
"Fucking beast of a dude."
Yeah.
So he stops her from slapping him. He's like, "Calm down. The bed broke." And he stands up, points at the divider he puts up. It's like, "I don't need to put this up. You built up bigger walls than I could ever make."
Oh God.
And then he gathers up his blankets to walk out. And she's like, "Where are you going?" I am going out to the lobby because there is a couch that has a better sense of humor than you do. And
I'm
that's
going to look for a different movie to be in.
Yeah.
that's
I'm going to
That's-
read the script to Suburban Commando because this is shit.
so.
Suburban Commando is high art compared to this.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! So
This movie actually made me want to watch Suburban Commando
look, I'll say this: the only thing I know about Suburban Commando is
or
that
Surf Ninjas.
Oh, don't you dare besmirch! No, you're thinking about Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
Mm.
That's
I
the
don't
one with Hulk Hogan.
Some
Surf
shit
Ninjas
movie.
is the one with Leslie Nielsen, which is still just great. So this is when we get the big reveal that they cut back to Sam was hired by Brell to seduce Rip for reasons.
To try to.
I want
Have him over to the network, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. It's never
Yeah.
really explained very well. It's a lazy. It's a common like plot trope or whatever, but
Sure.
it was used very lazily in this. Of
Well,
like, oh, she's a spy for Brell.
Well, so then she goes back. So he slaps her because, of course, he does. And then
Because he's
she
a bad man who slaps women.
Yeah, he's a bad man who slaps women. So she goes back to Rip and confesses everything. And he's
Has
like,
he said
"Don't worry,
jockass
it's okay."
a lot at this point?
He has said it either two
Three.
or three times at this point.
3 times.
You jockass.
Then I can't remember if he says it 3 or 4 times in the whole movie, but the last time he says it is the very end. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then all is completely forgiven. So once again, another plot point that's just dropped for convenience sake. So then we cut to a charity event. So the end of this scene is the TV where Brell and Zeus are effectively calling Rip out to fight for the world championship. Cut to him doing charity work, and the ADR is just he's watching a couple. He's like coaching a couple kids wrestling, and he's like, you can just hear the ADR. It's like, yeah, you're both competing really well. That's what it means to compete. You try your hardest. It's just fantastic.
I found it pretty ironic as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, of course.
That he was actually like teaching kids mat wrestling, because I'm pretty sure that Hulk Hogan has never actually done any combat sports in his life.
Oh, probably not. No.
And actually, one of the reasons that he ended up going back to WWF was when he was working in Minnesota in the old AWA. They wouldn't make him the world champion because he didn't have a traditional wrestling background. So I just found that kind of ironic that they shoehorned in the look. I could do traditional wrestling, brother.
Yeah.
So the helicopter lands. Bro and Rip come out and challenge Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan does the morally upstanding thing. It doesn't resort to violence, and he doesn't succumb to childish playground challenges like this. And then he's his coach is proud of him, and he goes on and talks about this. And then we get to, once again, plot points just drop for no apparent reason. Sam is almost raped by a henchman of Brell, and Rip comes in, saves her, throws him into a tree, and then comes back and just completely blows past his trauma. I will say, I must have blinked past it the last time and didn't really pay attention, but this time I watched it, I'm like, I actually found this more offensive than the rape that was in Killing American Style.
Really?
Yeah, because the way that the rape in Killing American Style was shot, like, it was brutal. Like, it wasn't played for laughs. It was not joy. Like, it wasn't an enjoyable experience. Like, it was.
I don't know that I've ever seen an enjoyable rape scene.
And it but you know how Italian rape, Italian scenes, so it's like they'll play just to get nudity into the movie. Like,
right.
That was very it was a brutal scene. Like, it was not something you could just blow past. This was literally just set up, done very brutally, and then just completely blown past. Not addressed ever again in the movie. Like, it was just gone.
I thought it was really bad. We've talked about this before. I think 99.999% of the time, it's a bad idea to put a rape scene in your story.
No, absolutely. No.
I did not find this one as bad as Killing American Style, mostly because this was an attempted rape. It was over pretty quickly. Rip comes and interferes. It was bad. It was offensive. It shouldn't have been there. I still think Killing American Style might have been the most uncomfortable 5 minutes of my life.
I guess for me, like
because
if
it goes
rape-
on and
it does.
on and on and
Yeah.
on.
It's just so they blow past this trauma, and that's a whole conversation we could have. And I think it's a very interesting conversation to have about like said storytelling and how storytelling has evolved and stuff like that. To me, like that's. Anyway, so we cut to another fight with Zeus and Randy and his friend. Did they ever mention his friend's name? Like,
I don't think so.
Okay. So they go there to watch him fight. Randy runs into Brell. Brell finds out because his asshole friend drops the dime on him that he's Rip's brother. And Zeus beats the ever-loving shit out of him.
Puts him in the hospital.
So this is where it talks about, like, where it really starts to get to this really dark place, like this really dark idea. So Rip, in a fit of revenge, goes to Zeus's gym and starts tearing the place up. Zeus has been like Manchurian candidated by Brell to want to fight Rip. Like there's TVs talking about how Rip thinks you're worthless. Rip doesn't think that you're good for anything. And like this idea that Zeus is now just kind of kept in this environment where he is MK Ultra'd into wanting to fight Rip. And so he destroys the entire he destroys the entire gym. He decides to he finally finds the video camera where they're watching him, and he javelins the barbell through the camera, and they all jump because they're all wusses and stuff like that. You know, nothing really happens here. Hospital scene. We cut to a hospital scene with Rip. He is talking about how he's proud of him, but now it's my turn to stand up to Zeus. And I love the fact that Hulk Hogan is really going for it. He's going for it in the scene. So we cut to the montage or the training montage of after Brell announces that the big championship fight will happen between Zeus and Rip, and they go to fight night.
The only thing missing from that training montage was Gonna Fly Now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like you have Zeus just beating the shit out of cinder blocks. It's
the worst. It's the worst satire of Rocky ever.
Yeah,
unintentional.
That was on that picture of him hitting the cinder block was on the back of the video case.
It reminded me of.
I used to look at it every week.
It reminded me of Ivan Drago in.
He's
in Rocky IV.
Oh no, that's clearly what they're going for. Clearly,
Yeah.
But once again, because Rip is a babyface, while Zeus is training, he's taking care of his brother and helping him through physical therapy. The elevator,
which is actually pretty good. I mean, it's a shit movie. We all know that, but that's actually a pretty good character thing.
Yeah.
They kidnap Sam at the very end to hold her hostage, but
they trick her. They Jedi mind trick her by putting her on an elevator.
Yeah.
I like, haha, it worked. She got on the elevator and it went where elevators go.
The elevator's ready. And they're like, oh yeah, this massive plan where they all, whatever. So they
guys, I got on the elevator and it went to the floor that I pushed, and that wasn't like a really brilliant plan.
Yeah. So the one that I found interesting about this is this is the final fight. Everybody already loves Rip. Like usually in movies like this, you have the final fight where the crowd hates the hero, but he eventually wins them over through him just being an amazing person and all that. But yeah. So they fight.
Rip
them. They fight. Zeus loses control, starts going nuts, starts beating up the trainer and everybody else.
He tries to stick a big metal post through him, doesn't he?
Yeah, there's a moment where they actually talk about earlier in the movie that Charlie, who is Rip's trainer, had previously trained Zeus before Zeus went to prison for killing some dude in the ring.
That's a whole thing. And then
they try to tie it all together in the end.
So they get up to the platform where the TV room is at and where Brell is at. They fight and he punches him so hard he flies and lands in the ring and collapses the ring. And then
which is another thing that WWF did later. Was the collapsing
Oh,
ring.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did the collapsing ring in like 2002.
Oh, I love that.
And then great. And then so at this point, Brawl's destroying the TV room because he's upset, and Rip breaks through the window, is about to fight up, and he backs up. He's like, "Leave me alone, you jock ass," and electrocutes himself. Like, okay, so for such a chase
Fucking
movie,
dies.
Saying jock ass is
as
what
you're
kills
closing
him.
line, for such a chased movie, like the violence is very cartoonish, it's very close to the rest of all that. Like, the two main villains get absolutely brutal deaths. One guy gets thrown through the air 30 feet and lands in a wrestling ring, and the other guy gets electrocuted to death.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So-
very odd. It like turns into sort of Total Recall right at the very end.
It actually
Proper
does.
brutal.
Even like the way the aesthetics of the stage and like the ring, it's this octagon ring and stuff. It does
Yeah.
have kind of, it does have kind of like a
yeah.
Total Recall Running Man kind of aesthetic. To it.
Yeah, it's well odd.
Yeah. So
And
Had
no one
noticed.
else gives a shit. Like those
Nope.
two horrible
No, they
things
all
happen,
cheered.
but everyone
Yeah,
else
they
carries
all-
on acting like they're in the other movie.
Yeah, they all
Very,
cheer. They're
very weird.
excited. He goes down the ramp, or he goes down the stairs, sees Randy standing up. He's like, "Randy." And with that,
Rip
he
it.
gets to the ring, celebrates,
Oh, motherfucking
throws up his rip it sign, freeze frame, and that is no holds barred. I'm surprised this conversation actually was longer than Faust.
I know. I was just looking at the time.
Well,
I'm looking at
listen,
the time
mate,
and I'm thinking, God, this is taking a while
This
for us
was
to talk about
this
this movie.
this is a dense film.
It really was.
Very
I will say, like,
layered and nuanced and lots of.
yeah. Well, I
So
think that's a good
following-
I
point.
fucking enjoyed the movie, man.
A couple of last things about the movie. After the movie came out, they decided what Vince McMahon's experiment was, instead of making a wrestler into a movie star, he wanted to take a movie star, Tiny Lister, and make him a wrestler. So he created Zeus within the confines of the movie and then brought Zeus into WWF for SummerSlam 1989 to challenge Hulk Hogan. And they tied the two together, and it was a big part of promoting the movie. And the movie was to promote wrestling, and wrestling helped to promote the movie, both of which failed. The movie made about $16 million total, which was, for context, it was half of what Weekend at Bernie's made the same summer. It did open second when it opened. The opening weekend, it came in second behind Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So I guess that was kind of good for an opening weekend. But so they brought in Tiny Lister as Zeus. Tag team match, Hulk Hogan, Brutus Beefcake versus Randy Savage and Zeus. We have a picture from that. They actually had to film the intro to this twice when Zeus first came on, because he didn't know that he was actually supposed to make it look like he was hitting Hulk Hogan. He's an actor and he was used to stopping. So he was punching like this.
Right.
And he said Hulk Hogan is yelling at him, hit me, hit me, hit me. And he just keeps stopping and stopping. So they had to film it a second time to get it right for TV.
Right.
But anyway, when the movie didn't do well, in December of 89, Vince McMahon put together a pay-per-view where they had No Holds Barred, the match, the movie, where it was a pay-per-view where they showed the movie and then had a steel cage match, which was a rematch of the tag team match from SummerSlam. And that ended Tiny Lister's wrestling career. He no longer, that was the only time he wrestled for WWF. He did make another appearance when Hulk Hogan was in WCW in 95, 96. But because Vince McMahon owned the rights to the name Zeus, he appeared as Z Gangsta. Z Gangsta. Because he had been in Friday as Debo by that point. So people knew him as Debo and Zeus. So he was Z Gangsta.
Where Ice Cube beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, and he joined the Alliance to end Hulkamania, got the shit kicked out of him, and then made the rest of his career just being Tiny Lister. So, and here was the cage match that they did. But
those shoulder pads, man.
Yeah.
Peak 80s.
Yeah. So, that is No Holds Barred.
Woohoo!
It is a fun movie if you get a chance.
God.
It's very difficult to watch. We had to find it through some alternative means because it's not available on DVD. It's not available on any streaming service. It's not available on the WWE network even. So it's very difficult to find it and watch it. But if you get a chance, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a good movie.
Look, I gave this movie a lot of shit, but I will say for a single watch through for me, like I'm not into wrestling, especially don't know the history of wrestling. So for me, like a lot of the interesting things in this movie kind of go over my head. But I did have a lot of fun with it, and it's one of those things like if you take a step back from it and just realize how cheesy and ridiculous that this movie is, it's a lot of fun. And
It is.
Look, we've done way worse on this. We've done way
It's
worse.
better
on
than
this
Veronica.
Yeah.
All right, let's be honest.
For
It's
me,
not better.
for me, it was
everything's better than Veronica.
It was nostalgic. It felt like watching
Yeah.
the little missing piece to the video collection that I never really got to watch when I was a little kid. So
it was nostalgic.
And it was far funnier than I expected it to be.
Yeah. It was nostalgic. It was also doing the research this week and kind of I got nostalgic for the old wrestling as well because of course, learning some of the stuff that was going on around the same time. So now I kind of want to go back and watch that Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant match that set up the movie, like that they used to get rid of Hulk Hogan for a year, for 6 months or whatever, so he could go make the movie. Those are memorable historic moments in pro wrestling, and so yeah, I had fun with it this week. So all right, we are on to promos. Max, what do you got?
Find me on Max Headshroom on everywhere except for Twitter, where I am M Headshroom. Follow me, check out my artwork. I've got a comic on Indiegogo called Rokan. Fantasy, wizards, warriors, all that great stuff. It's fully painted by me and written by Ben Jackson, who's a great writer. Hop on there, have a look, see if you like it. If you do, maybe think about buying a copy. If you don't, maybe think about sharing the link. And if you don't want to do any of them, fuck you. And of course, hop on here on Saturday afternoons on 4 o'clock, where we do another show called Saturday Morning Cartoons. Pay no attention to the title because it is morning somewhere on Saturday, isn't it? And the show spans across 2 different countries. That's also hosted by me and Ben Jackson. We're always trying to get Chris and the Snob to hop on with us when they're available. I think next week we're discussing Dark Place, which is a comedy about a terrible writer. You may have noticed that that's not a Saturday morning cartoon either. And we don't give a shit about that either. We're keeping the title. The show's not
and Aria, I don't even think you could call it
cartoons.
I don't even think you could call it Saturday ... cartoons. I think you would have to call it Saturday ... fill in the blank.
Yeah. But it's an off-road show, we like it that way. Plus the link's open, so if you want to hop on at any time, you can hop on. Don't be shy. I know some of you is, but we'll have a chat with you. It's fine. It doesn't even have to be about the current subject.
You can even go on that show having not watched the show that you're on there to talk about.
Absolutely.
Because I've done it.
Absolutely, yeah. You're just going to be out talk. Just about talking. And that's me.
Okay. Justin.
I am still creatively homeless at the moment. However, that hopefully will be changing the next couple of weeks here. I'll have some announcements to put out. But as always, please, my wife does amateur theater in the St. Neots area. Pocket Productions just did their show a couple weeks ago. Fossils are just fantastic. So please look them up on Facebook, like their page. The Melodramatics, the Bolton Melodramatic Society, their Pantos will be coming up here in the next couple of months. So please like their page on Facebook and stay tuned for show dates or show information. As always, wherever you're at, support local amateur art. COVID, still a thing. Pandemic, still a thing. And, the big professional shows, they have a financial cushion to fall back on, while amateur, smaller, independent theater and shows do not. So please go support them. If you can't support the shows I'm putting out, please go to support your local artists or your local independent theater groups. They'll always appreciate it, and you'll always have a good time. Other than that, everyone really appreciate everyone out here on the chat. Really appreciate everyone's activity on the comments, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Cool. I am still writing, working on Heavy Hitters, issue number 1. I'm also starting to look into doing some freelance editing of comic books. I'm working with a first-time writer right now, trying to edit along and help them out. And so hopefully I'll turn into something. I've got some editing experience and lots of writing experience, so yeah, it might turn out to be something cool. So if you're interested in having, if you're an independent comics creator and you'd like to have an editorial voice or someone to take a look at your work, hit me up. Always available. Other than that, I have been reading lots and lots of comics lately. I want to give a shout out. This is not a paid endorsement, but I got a couple of bundles this week of alternate comics from Publish and Pete Samedi. I went on the site and I backed their most recent bundle on Indiegogo, but I went and bought their 2 previous ones on the website. Great packaging, great service, got here really quick. And the books are really cool. It's all newsprint. The colors are really, it's like a nice nostalgic kind of late 80s kind of feel to the comics. Stories are really good. So yeah, if you're interested, I would recommend Alterna Comics. They're pretty cool. They're an independent publisher that does it on their own, and I think it's mostly Pete doing it himself, but definitely worth a look. I've enjoyed it. Next week we are watching 2019 After the Fall of New York. This is an Italian Mad Max ripoff. It's really fun. I've seen this one before. It's a pretty fun movie. There's some funny, interesting, it's good. It's not as shitty as you might think. It's not as shitty as some other Italian Mad Max ripoffs.
Oh God.
So it's pretty good. I think that's about it for this week. Does anybody have anything else?
No, a good show. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it was good. As always, we end with the John Waters quote: "Get more out of life.
See a fucked up movie."
Oh, sorry.
Bye, everybody.
Evening.